Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, November 7th, and this week, Boston clamps down on Robotaxis, Uber takes on Waymo, and gig workers get a new gig. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Brian Carini. Brian, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jared. I'm dealing with a little bit of sickness here, so that you might recognize that the voice is a little different, but we'll do this episode as basses and baritones, and we're good to go.
I'm also fighting a cold, and I'm also sick with it, with this cool jacket I'm wearing. I never wear the leather jacket on the show, so I figured why not? Why not wear it?
You're a rock star, and you might as well act like one.
That's right. It's and it's also 'tis the season. So we're gonna jump right in. Obviously, as the title says, this is all about robotaxis, and we are going to talk all about it. So we're going to start first with Boston, and they are essentially putting the brakes on driverless taxis. And this is from Bloomberg. And they reported Boston City Council are proposing an ordinance that would require Waymo and other autonomous services to have human operators present in the vehicle. The legislation would mandate a study on the technology's effects on the employment of the current rideshare drivers and prohibit self-driving cars from operating in Boston until that's been completed and other permitting requirements are established. The restrictions are up for possible action at a meeting this week, though Council says there are likely to be more hearings on the legislation before it comes to a full vote. Boston has been something of a hotbed for AV vehicle development in the future, and it's among the cities where Waymo has been doing mapping and testing. So this is very interesting, Brian. This is the first time that I've seen that the city is literally putting the hammer down and saying, you can't have unsupervised AV vehicles until we feel like they're absolutely safe.
Yeah, no, I think this is very exciting. I read this and I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Like that, this is what cities need to do. And frankly, I don't really care what the regulations are. I just want them to have their voice heard and to set the rules that they think are important for the safety and well-being of the community. Boston knows its city and its workforce and its streets better than anybody else. So they should set the standards for AV in their city. And that's true for Chicago, it's true for New York, it's true for San Francisco. But what we talked about forever now is that so many cities just roll over, let these companies come in, break everything, set their own rules, set their own standards, and then it's too late to regulate once all that foundation has been set. So the fact that Boston is doing this from the beginning is making clear that they want safety to be a priority, making clear that there needs to be certain standards in place. That's exactly how you integrate new technology, new forms of transportation in a responsible way. So I hope that they stay firm on this. None of this has passed yet. But the fact that they're talking about it, the fact that they're setting rules, talking about what those rules should be, that's it. This should be a model for how every city debates AV. AV is coming. Nobody's going to escape it. We're all going to have this technology as a part of our lives sooner rather than later, but we should control it. And Boston is a template, hopefully, for how to do that the right way.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. And Waymo's response, which I think was kind of funny here, is they said it's the first major city in the world to ban fully autonomous vehicles based entirely on vibes, which I think is completely ridiculous. This isn't vibes. I mean, this is safety. We've seen that these things can be very unsafe. We see even on the lesser end, it causes just technical nightmares. All they're saying is, look, you gotta prove that this is worth our streets before we just throw them on the streets. And Boston's unions have also, the Teamsters have also been very vocally opposed. So this is an example too of, like you said, when you're like, no, it's not, this is what I'm talking about. Literally, this is a city that's saying, we are not being duped twice, and we are getting the unions involved, and this is becoming a serious thing. First time I've seen it in any of the rideshare world, so pretty exciting stuff.
Boston's the adult in the room, and Waymo's sitting there being like, be cool, bro. Like that's, that's not, Boston is handling this the right way,
Yep.
and I appreciate that they are.
Yep. And so we're going to jump onto our second story, which, man, this week is just, everyone is throwing down. It really seems to be a pivotal turn on robotaxis. Uber is now officially taking on Waymo in San Francisco. And this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, Uber Technologies is preparing to offer driverless rides on vehicles developed by Lucid Group and Nuro in the San Fran Bay Area for the first time next year, thrusting the company into direct competition with Waymo's robotaxi service. The move is a step towards Uber challenging Waymo, whose driverless taxis have been pretty ubiquitous in San Francisco. The two companies currently work together to provide Waymo rides on the Uber app in Austin, Atlanta, and Phoenix, but Waymo now offers its own service in major urban markets like San Francisco and LA. So this is wild, Brian. You know, the time has finally come. I think the gloves are truly off. They are now finally going head to head in market number one here.
Yeah, I think it's the beginning of the battle. So, obviously market share is going to be huge. Uber has dominated market share when it comes to rideshare. They got an early start. They came in aggressive to so many cities, and ever since then, Lyft has been playing from behind. And I think that what Uber saw is Waymo is taking that initial step forward, and Uber does not want to be the Lyft of autonomous vehicles. They want to be in charge. They want to be the big dog. So it does not surprise me that they're challenging Waymo in one of these first primary markets. They want to show that they can compete. They want to integrate onto their app, which people are already using. So I think if Uber can put forward a competitive product that has the same features, the same safety, I'll put that in quotes, that, all the things that Waymo is offering, Uber has an opportunity to lead the pack because they've already got so many users on their platform. We'll see if they're able to do it. Waymo has been the big dog in autonomous vehicles so far, but I would venture to say it's not too late for that to flip. This is not an Uber Lyft situation where Lyft is just never going to catch up. I think Uber certainly could catch Waymo, and they're making efforts to do that.
Yeah, they are, according to this article, the first fleet of these arrived in September, and they're about to grow to about 100 in the coming months. But just to put in that perspective, I believe Waymo already in San Francisco is probably in the hundreds to 1,000 plus. So they're still catching up. I don't know much about Lucid Gravity SUVs or the Nuro's self-driving technology. We know a lot about Waymo's. It really was the first, obviously Google funded, Google owned. And so that's also going to be a really interesting thing. This might be really one of the first times that, and we discussed this many months ago, maybe even a year ago, what happens when there's different self-driving tech in the same city. So not only is there competition between the companies, how is the tech going to respond? And they're obviously doing it all very differently. So because this tech is proprietary, so it obviously doesn't work together. That's going to be very interesting to see. Likely, I'm imagining there's going to be some sort of issues. So we will see.
Yeah, time will tell. And I think the market will speak. One's going to win out. I think it's going to be handed and quick. So we'll just have to see who the customers prefer, what technology they prefer, which ride is more comfortable, which ride is more, is more readily available. All these factors are going to come into play, and then all of a sudden, one of these is going to be the top player in the space, and it's going to be hard for everybody else to catch up.
Yep, 100%. And our final story today, and we have discussed this in the past about robotaxis. Robotaxis could technically offer new gigs for gig workers. This is from Business Insider. They reported, quote, as self-driving cars become cheaper and more common, there could be new opportunity for drivers in the world of robotaxis, says Jeremy Bird, Lyft's Executive Vice President of Driver Experience. Bird said, quote, the hybrid would be that of the future might be the driver is the owner of the vehicle that they are able to put on the platform. Robotaxis could create other jobs as well, such as depots that maintain the vehicles. Bird said the cars would need to be charged and serviced around the clock. A gentleman named Walter, who drives for Lyft in the Bay Area and previously ran his own delivery business, said that he would consider taking out a loan to buy vehicles that he could make available to Lyft for rides. This is something that in the driver groups, especially on Facebook, when Tesla looked like it was going to be the leader, maybe a year and a half, even maybe 2 years ago, A lot of drivers are saying, hey, I'm going to buy a Tesla so that I can rent it out. It can do the work for me. This is the first time I'm hearing Lyft say anything that they would be okay with that potentially. Drivers considering it. So, yeah, sometimes markets disrupt, and then other times they also build new opportunities. The question is it enough sustainably, financially? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. So I read this article and I thought to myself, this is kind of BS. Like, yes, there are going to be some Lyft drivers who are able to afford autonomous vehicles that they can then rent out when they're not using them and make money around the clock. That, yes, that will happen. But the vast majority of people who work in this space are not buying one car, let alone multiple cars that can develop a fleet like that. That's a very small subset of people who are going to be able to do that. It's certainly not most of rideshare drivers. So what's going to happen to the majority? Are they're going to be out of work? The same thing goes when they were talking about how these AVs are going to have to be serviced. There's going to have to be charging stations that will need people to man them. Yes, that's true. But those stations, those facilities, how many people are they actually going to hire? Tens, maybe hundreds. We're not talking about thousands or tens of thousands of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs like rideshare currently provides. So while I understand the point that this shift from autonomous vehicle, from regular cars to autonomous vehicles will create other opportunities, I don't think that it's going to provide opportunity for the vast majority of people who are affected by it and who ultimately lose their jobs and or a significant amount of their income due to that shift. So I think this is one way where Lyft is trying to get ahead of the issue, trying to paint a rosy picture of what it's going to look like for the working class going forward. When in actuality, this is going to be a moneymaker for Lyft. They're going to have to pay drivers or vehicle operators far less. They're going to make a ton more money. And the working person is ultimately, in the vast majority of time, going to be left on the wayside.
Yeah, it really brings up two things in my head while you're discussing this and the opportunities here. Number one, it really does remind me more of the chargers, so the people that chase down the scooters and recharge them. And yes, there is money there, but it's very tough. It's a physically grueling job, and so that's what reminds me of the depots that they're talking about. So how many people are really going to be able to do that and run around and check on these cars? The second thing too, which no one's really talking about because it's way too new yet, we don't know. But we know that even with rideshare in general, like you have to keep up with the standards of Uber and Lyft's requirements of the car. Now that's hard enough as far as what you had brought up about the amount of money just even to get one of these self-driving cars. What no one's talking about yet, because it hasn't happened yet, is what happens when you buy that car in 2025 and now it's 2 years later and they say, hey, sorry, there's a software update that does not work on your vehicle. You're going to need to do a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 update or upgrade, whether it be getting a new car or getting a huge amount of tech into the car. Who's going to be able to afford that? That's something that, again, they probably are thinking about. They're not going to tell the public that.
Right.
So yeah, it's not the same, and the opportunities I think are going to be a lot slimmer as far as income.
Well, and the truth is that these fleets of cars, that's going to be where the vast majority of AVs come from. Either Lyft's going to own a ton of them, or there's going to be private equity that owns a ton of them, or even just, rich people who buy a bunch of cars and put them out on the road and make money, start new businesses that way. Will there be individuals who do, put a car or two on the road? Yes, that will happen, but that's not going to be the vast majority of these vehicles. And I think Lyft knows that, and they're hiding that fact.
Yeah, 100%. But that is the stories this week regarding all robotaxis, as always. But we will, of course, Brian, give you the final say before we head into the weekend.
Yeah, we always remind everybody that Legal Rideshare is available for free consultations if you ever find yourself injured on the roadway. We represent drivers, passengers, anybody who's injured in a rideshare related event. Please give us a call. We can help you set up the insurance claim and collect money for things like medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, any other damage that you sustain. All of our contact information is on our website, legalrideshare.com. Please visit us and give us a call if you need us.
Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.